Welcome back to episode 14. We actually have Ills for this episode. We don't have Katie anymore. Nothing wrong with Katie. She's still good. She's
She's
just,
not me though. She's
but
not
she's
me.
not Ills. She's not Ills. We do need her for, to sub in once in a while. So let's not go too far into.
My fault. My
Yeah,
fault.
it's all good. No, I mean I was joining in too, right? Uh um we're back, talking about baseball. I'm just gonna start off. I'm just gonna start it off.
All right, bet. I'm with it.
Baseball.
Let's go. All right.
Baseball playoffs start tomorrow. But before we even get to the playoffs, anything important happen in the baseball season recently? Have you heard anything cool or interesting or record breaking in the last, I don't know, week or two? Bills?
I can give you two things off the top of my head.
It's not Shohei.
Okay, that was the first thing. It's
Yeah.
Shohei. The second thing is Chicago.
It is Chicago. That's the
Yeah.
story for today. Now, I was going to do a whole episode about Shohei. 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases has never been done before. And I was thinking about making an episode, and Chicago went and did the impossible. So I was like, you know what? Let's do this about Chicago, and let's do this about the worst teams in the Big Four sports. So
Love that.
yeah, let's just start it off with Chicago. Now, usually in baseball, they play 162 games. That's a lot of games. If you
Yeah.
hit 100 losses, you're pretty bad.
That must be so frustrating. Just like 100, right? Don't you
Triple
get bored of it?
digits.
Yeah,
You know what I
triple
mean?
digit losses.
No other sport has that. If you go 0 and 82 in basketball or hockey, you didn't hit 100, but you can
Yeah.
you can hit 100 in baseball. It happens here and there. The Baltimore Orioles did it a couple years ago. I think the Oakland Athletics did it in 2023. They've hit the 100 mark and they've expanded past that.
Mhm.
Now, the Chicago White Sox had 121 losses. I cannot believe it.
That's crazy.
A friend of mine, his name is Will. Will Lutz, actually, like the same name as the NFL kicker. He
Oh,
actually
cool.
he actually met him. Yeah, he
Me?
actually no, not you.
He meant Will Lutz. Okay.
Come on, man.
My fault. I'm like, I don't remember meeting a Will.
Yeah, but he's a big fan of the Chicago White Sox, so I've just been sending him tweets.
Dang.
He does not enjoy it. I
That's
think
a
it's
sad
funny.
existence. That's a sad existence.
My bad, Will. My bad. I don't think he listens to this podcast. So not since I'm mentioning people, and it's now going to be the second episode. I've told Josh from our sports team that don't stop believing. I was going to continue mentioning him forever. So this one's for you, Josh. I love you, man.
Shout out.
Uh, anyway, back to the Chicago White Sox. 41 and 121. That is their record. That is what they ended with their 2024 season. It is the worst season in modern times. And but when I say modern times or modern era, I mean 162 games. This is the worst record, I would say, of all time, considering the games.
Yeah,
Um, they had a .253 win percentage, which is
that's
they they won
crazy.
one out of every four games.
Damn.
Another thing is they had three separate 12 losses in a row streak. Like three different times in the season, they lost 12 in a row.
It must suck to wake up, right, as an athlete, go into a game, right? If you think about like Detroit Pistons from last year,
Yeah,
they went on a pretty historic run of losing.
right.
Um, they're at least somewhat competitive, you know?
Yeah,
It's like there's a chance we'll win. If you're winning what, like they had a what, point two, you said, win percentage?
.253.
Or yeah, you go, you wake up, and you're like, we're probably gonna lose today.
Yeah,
100 times, 160 times, you're
yeah.
waking up, we're probably gonna lose.
Well, with the Detroit Pistons, at least they get like a break.
Yeah,
Like our next game's in 2 days. Now with the White Sox, they got to go in next game
yeah.
tomorrow. I think I've sent you the admin for the Chicago White Sox Twitter has given up near the end of the season. He's just like, you can look up the score on the website.
I love that. I love when teams do that.
Yeah. So, three different times they've lost 12 in a row. Actually, their record for the last 14 games was 8-6. And they won
Oh,
five out of their last six games, and they still ended up with 121
were
losses.
they playing scrubs like
They were playing
backups?
score. They were playing
Oh,
the
okay.
Angels, who had lost Shohei, and Mike Trout was injured, so they also sucked.
Hmm.
Um, but to win five out of the last six, and still, there's just one loss away, because the record, the lowest, was 119 previously. right? I guess
Yeah.
two losses away. Well, 119 by the Detroit Tigers back in 2003.
Hey.
But actually, this is not technically the worst record in MLB history. Now, I didn't mention this was modern times, but do you know how far back do you think we have to go to get to the worst record in
Ooh,
MLB history?
baseball's old, so let's say what's considered modern times. Let's say
Well,
the 30s,
it's older than the 30s.
the 1900s. I don't know.
1899.
Wow. Oh, I was close with that. Okay.
1899, the Cleveland Spiders, which I think was a cool name, right?
That's a dope name. I don't know.
I
They gotta
know.
bring that.
See, when Cleveland changed their name, they changed to the Guardians. They should have done the Spiders. That would have been cool. That would have been unique.
Yeah.
The Cleveland Spiders ended up 20 and 134, right? This is back when they played 154 games. 2034 get to a .13 win percentage.
That's
Uh,
crazy.
but they actually had, so the thing is, when we're talking about the worst teams, right? Every single one of these teams has a reason why, and none of them are like they were tanking. The Chicago White Sox were not tanking; they just sucked, right?
Yeah.
And the Cleveland Spiders had, I think, the most insane story. Now, this is back in the day where owners did whatever they wanted, right? Because there was no like regulations. So the owners for the Cleveland Spiders, the day before the season started, bought another team. They bought the St. Louis Perfectos, which became the St. Louis Cardinals.
These names are
We,
so cool.
weird names, right?
No, I love these names. Perfecto? That's sick.
Yeah. They bought that team. They shipped all the Cleveland Spiders players to that team, right? So one of those players was Cy Young, and now like the best pitcher award is named after Cy Young. So these were good
Okay.
players. They
Yeah.
moved all the players to the other team. So the Cleveland Spiders had no one. So they had just scrubs the entire time. That's why they ended up with only 20 wins.
So it's just dudes they picked up off the street. Like, hey,
Exactly. It was
let's go play some
1899.
baseball.
Yeah.
Wow. And they were still pretty close to the current day um White Sox, right?
Yeah, basically. I mean, like 0.13 to 0.25. It wasn't like a gigantic difference.
Yeah, it's not
Uh,
crazy.
the Cleveland Spiders stopped being a team the year after. They're like,
Okay.
yeah, they're done.
Yeah.
But I thought that for this episode, we'd also talk about the other worst teams in the Big Four sports. I think it's a pretty easy one. So I'm going to throw you a fastball, just like meatball down the middle, and I'm going to ask you some tough questions.
All right.
Oh, there goes the video, whatever. Um, what do you think is the worst NFL team season of all time?
The 0-16 Browns and the Lions?
That's what I have down here too.
Yeah.
There have been some worse seasons, but it cannot get as worse as these two. Why don't we start off with the 2008 Detroit Lions?
Yeah.
I started watching football around this time. I remember people talking about 2008 Detroit. They went 0-16, right? This is one of two teams.
Mhm.
0-16, they went 2-14 the next year, right? So they went
Damn.
2-30 over two seasons.
Damn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were pretty bad. But they had the saving grace. Do you know who they drafted? And then that because the NFL's draft is different than the rest of the leagues. The rest of the leagues do it by percentage.
Hmm.
So if you ended up the worst in a season, you get the highest percentage to get number one. In the NFL, if you finish worst, you get the number one pick. Do you know
Yeah.
who they chose the next draft in 2009?
In 2009?
Yes.
2009. Was Megatron already on the team by then?
Megatron was already on the team by then.
Okay, so Stafford? Question mark?
It was Matt Stafford,
Yeah.
right? He was the number one pick overall in 2009. And so that was sort of like their consolation prize. They got Matt Stafford. Do you think
Hmm.
it was worth it to go 0-16 to get Matt Stafford?
I mean, he was a good ass quarterback, but they still didn't win a lot with him in the building, right?
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
But that's the 2008 Detroit Lions. I also had, before I go on to the Cleveland Browns, I also had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in their first ever season. They went 0-14. I
Wow.
didn't include them because it was only 14 losses compared to 16. But the next one is the 2017 Cleveland Browns. I think these guys are worse.
Yeah.
Because not only did they go 0-16, but the previous year they went 1-15, which means over 2 years they went 1-31. Do you remember their one win? I remember their one win.
No, I don't remember their one
It
win.
came. It was near the end of the season. It was getting real. I think they were at 0 and 12. Oh, like it was getting really close. They're playing the
Yeah.
Chargers. Of course, it's always the Chargers. And Cleveland won on a last second field goal.
That's like
That's a
that's feel good right there. And then they
they
lose every single game next
they've
season.
lost every single game since. Do you remember the coach for the Cleveland Browns?
I forget his name. Some black guy, and he had that phrase, which I'm sure you're going to bring up, where he said, if I go 1-16 again or one and whatever, I'll
1 Yeah, he said if I
yeah
go
I'll
1 and 15 again, I'm gonna go and skinny dip in Lake Erie or like the nearby river in the middle of the fall. And this is Cleveland. It's cold. Hugh Jackson is the
Hugh
guy.
Jackson. There you go. I knew he
And he
started
did
with H.
actually go and skinny dip, unfortunately, for that river. I think the craziest thing is he still had a job after those 32 games. He went
Yeah.
halfway into the next season before he got fired.
If you go 1-15, you should automatically get fired.
Talk about job security. How did he
I'm saying,
stay? All right, do you know who they drafted? Because they went 0 and 16. Do you know who they drafted?
would that be Baker that year?
This is Baker. Now,
Yeah.
I think this is way worse because with Matt Stafford, he played a solid few, like he played like a decade for them, right? They had good years. Detroit's had some bad luck. They at least got Jared Goff from LA. Detroit's a really good team now.
Yeah.
Cleveland,
That's
let's
all their fault. That's their faults.
we're not going to get into too many details, but let's just say Baker is not on the team anymore. They have gone substantially worse. Baker's on Tampa Bay. He's played a lot better. And that's all I'm going to say. If you want to look it up, go ahead.
Yeah.
But they have a criminal as a quarterback. Anyway, so that is the easy question for you because I know you know football and you watch football during the 2017 Cleveland Browns. Do you remember their quarterback that they used or had?
Was that the Deshaun Kaiser? No, that's
It
not
was
Deshaun
yeah,
Kaiser. It's Kaiser?
Sean
Kaiser was
Kaiser.
bad.
Yeah,
Oh wow.
I felt bad for him, man.
Yeah.
He didn't have that
Yeah.
many. He had a lot of bad games, but there were some close ones too.
It's also like, what can you do in that situation, right?
Yeah, you have Hugh Jackson as your coach.
That's what I'm saying.
Anyway, let's move on to NHL. Do you know the worst NHL team of all time?
The worst NHL team of all time, the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, is correct.
No way, really? I
Uh,
was joking. Is that for real?
in 1992, 1993, Ottawa Senators went 10, 70, and 4.
That's bad.
So
Wow.
so this is like it's considered one of the worst league seasons of all time. I put it here because it's Ottawa, you know.
Yeah.
We're both from Ottawa. Ottawa's my favorite team of all time because it's my hometown team. 1992, 1993 is their inaugural season. So it was their expansion season.
Yeah.
Um, expansion drafts since then have gotten a lot better, but back then they were just it was just the worst of the worst players were available.
Hmm.
So they had a pretty bad season. They broke some records. So they had the worst road record ever. They had one win total. That's it. Of
On
40
the road.
games, they won one game
Bad.
on the road. They
Yeah.
went 39 in a row losing. So
That's
they won on their last road game. They're like, we did it. Yeah, they only won 10 games. I believe they won their first one
mhm.
against Montreal in the Corel Center. The Corel Center. You remember that?
I don't remember that.
That's where I think they renovated and now it's TD Place.
Oh, they used to play there.
They used to play there. It used to have 6,500 people in the NHL. That was how
Wow.
much they had. Yeah. Um, so Ottawa Senators stunk it up real bad.
Mhm.
So they get the first pick. They draft Alexander Daigle. He is considered one of the worst busts of all time.
Yeah, I've never heard of this guy, so that's very
Exactly.
telling. Yeah.
He had the talent. He just had no drive to actually win. He did not like hockey. He said it later on. He was not a fan of hockey. He just knew how talented he was, so he was in it for the money. So we wasted a first overall pick. So that's the Ottawa Senators right there.
That's like that one guy. What's his name? In football, the quarterback. Russell?
Yes, Russell. Him
Jamarcus?
and Jamarcus
Jamar
Russell,
yeah.
and I think also Ryan Leaf.
Yeah.
Well, yes, those guys. That is the same. It's like equivalent right there. All right. Brings us to the NBA. You know the NBA. what would
I
you
know the
consider
answer.
the worst NBA season of all time? Because I'm going to tell you right now, as bad as Detroit was, they tied the record for most losses in a row,
Yeah,
and they have the record for most losses in a row in a season. I don't
yeah.
consider them the worst team of all time. They ended up with 15 wins.
I'm gonna go Hail Mary here and say Philly when they were tanking, but I don't know.
I don't have
I'm
Philly here. I don't have Philly
no,
here. I have. Do you want me to say, or do you want to keep guessing?
nah, go for it. Toronto?
No, Charlotte.
Okay. Philly, okay.
Charlotte Bobcats in 2012. It was the expansion year.
Mhm.
They went 7-59.
Wow.
So they're considered the worst team because of the win percentage. Because obviously the expansion draft, the lockout year, it made it hard for teams to play the same amount of games. So look at the winning percentage; they were 0.11. They won 11% of their games. uh,
That's crazy.
that Philly team went 10-72, which I think is sort of equivalent, because I think if Charlotte played a few more games, they
Yeah.
could have gone there. I don't know. Charlotte's last win, I think, happened sometime in March. It was against the Raptors, so obviously, that's a nice one. Raptors always find themselves in the history book somehow.
Somehow,
But
yeah.
yeah, but yes, the Charlotte Bobcats went 7-15-9. They had Kemba Walker on that team.
Oh
That was
wow.
that was I think his first year with the team.
See, that's the thing. So that I consider that one of the worst ones because in basketball, I feel like sometimes you accidentally win. It just happens
Yeah,
sometimes. Sometimes you got a guy like Kemba Walker who was really good back in the day, who can go nuclear
yeah,
and win you a game. But if you only get seven, uh, that's bad, dude.
yeah. They were so bad they changed the Charlotte Hornets like a few years afterwards. But
Yeah.
do you know who they drafted the next year?
Who Charlotte drafted?
Yeah.
Sorry, what year was the
So this is 2012. So the draft was like 2012, going to the 2012-2013 season.
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
I'll tell you right now, they didn't get the first pick.
No.
Imagine going 7-55 and not getting the first pick. Do you know who the first pick was that year? It was to the New Orleans Hornets at the time. Now they're the newest Pelicans. They had Anthony Davis.
Yeah, 2013 with the name Anthony Davis, right? Yeah.
The second pick was Michael Kidd Gilchrist.
Okay. Damn. Imagine sucking so bad and you don't even get
You
Anthony
don't even
Davis
get
seven.
imagine Kemba and Anthony Davis. That would have been
That
a
would have
good
been
team.
that would have been nasty.
Anyway, there you go. I mean, and afterwards they drafted Anthony Davis and then they traded Chris Paul, so they never got to play together either. Um,
Sure. Yeah.
but I would say New Orleans has always had a better run. They had Chris Paul and Anthony Davis and Zion, so it's not always bad for them.
Yeah.
But that brings us sort of to the end of the teams I've had. Do you have any teams that you could think of that have had, comparable bad seasons?
I mean, out of recent memory, we got the Panthers. I think that was a really, really bad season last year. I'm just going off recent memory.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, last year's Detroit was terrible.
You guys, Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, Detroit Pistons. Sorry, let me
Detroit
say that.
Pistons.
Detroit Pistons was terrible. The Lions were fantastic. Pistons were garbage.
Yeah.
Wizards were garbage.
Yeah. The Wizards have been a
No,
bad team for a while.
dude, I saw the record for the White Sox on Twitter and I sent it to you. I'm like flabbergasted. How do you lose? What was it, 121?
121 times.
How do you lose 121 times? You can't figure out some sort of formula to get at least, 20 of those off, maybe
Yeah.
22, so you're like not in the hundreds. That's crazy.
The history of the White Sox is interesting. I sent it. So the White Sox have a World Series championship. They won in 2005,
Yeah.
right? But I sent you this a while ago on Twitter. The White Sox have only ever won about 3 playoff series, and they
Wow.
were all in the same year,
Wow.
which means they won all of them in 2005. Looking at the record of the White Sox, they have made the World Series about 3 times, and
Yeah.
those other 2 times were they had the best record in their respective league, so they automatically made to the World Series, and then they lost. So they have only won 3 playoff series total. This is a poverty franchise.
They just got it all in one bundle. Sold their
Yeah,
soul for that one chip.
yeah. Another thing
Damn.
about the White Sox is they are owned by Jerry Reisendorf, who is the owner of the Chicago Bulls, who is considered a horrible owner. And if it wasn't for Michael Jordan, I think the Bulls would be considered one of the worst teams of all time.
Dude, if it wasn't for Michael Jordan, Chicago might be the worst
Sports
sports
City.
city
Yeah.
ever, right? Because the Bears suck.
Yeah.
And they had good years, but the Bears suck
The
and
Bears
they've
have
been
one championship,
garbage.
1985. That's all they thrive on. That's it.
Yeah, yeah,
And then they had the Chicago Cubs, who went 108 years in between their championships.
yeah.
The
The
Blackhawks are okay. I
yeah.
mean, yeah, they won 3 times in 5 years, but they have a racist logo, so I hate them. So yeah, they'd be totally up there in terms of one of the worst towns. I don't like Jerry Reisendorf. They actually, so in terms of the recent history of the White Sox, they had a decent team like back in 2018, so not that far off.
Yeah.
2018, even up until 2021, 2022, they've had some decent teams. And then they're like, all right, we have a young team. We should hire a 75-year-old man who has been arrested for drunk driving and doesn't know anything about younger players and might be slightly racist. So they hired Tony La Russa for about 2 seasons. It was a disaster, right? He lost the locker room, and it has been downhill since then.
Shooting yourself in the foot.
I
That's
know.
crazy.
So
Yeah, that's just
that is the Chicago White Sox. Again, I feel bad for my friend Will. The reason he's a Chicago White Sox fan is he's from Chicago.
oh
Um,
word.
yeah, he grew up there when he was a kid. He likes Chicago. He likes the Bulls. He likes the Saints, which it's because his dad liked the Saints.
Okay.
But yeah, I kind of feel bad on the White Sox and the Bulls part.
Yeah, no, you're living in poverty at that point, bro.
But yeah, that sort of brings us near the end. Now, the Charlotte Panthers, uh, Carolina Panthers last year were pretty bad. This year, had they stuck with Bryce Young, I think would have went 0-17. That's the big thing now, right?
Yeah.
Now there's an extra game with the NFL. One team is bound to go 0-17, then they will be the worst team in the league. Every other league has stayed stuck with their 162, 82 games. But to go 0-17 is crazy.
It could happen this year. We still got some
Was it Jacksonville's
on
0-4?
yeah, Jacksonville's 0-4. Tennessee's playing as we speak, but they're
They're going to be
0-3.
0-4.
I
Yeah,
think they're gonna be
they're going to
0-4.
be 0-4. I cannot believe the Patriots are 1-3.
Yeah. Snuck that one win in,
They
man.
are
I thought they
so
were
bad.
decent when I saw that one win. I'm like, hey, maybe.
Maybe.
Nah, I was
Nope.
wrong. They're
This team
garbage, dude.
stinks. This team has a good defense, but the offense is not helping.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, rebuild. They're almost there.
Yeah, we're almost there.
All right.
Anyway, brings us to the end. Thank you for joining us for our episode on worst teams of all time. I am Oeezy,
What else?
and we will see you for the next episode.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.